Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Nancy GOROFF. We're happy to have you. We're going to jump right in with the first question. The district here's proximity to the ocean means that we are very vulnerable to climate change. The proximity to the ocean is an economic driver. It is also a reason why we live here and why we love it here. But that proximity to the ocean presents some unique challenges for us in the way of sea level rise and also the greater frequency and intensification of hurricanes and storms. There are many national proposals to reduce carbon dioxide, the chief driver of climate change. If you win this seat, what will you do as a Congresswoman representing the 1st District to reduce carbon dioxide? And please be specific about the programs or the legislation that you would support to fight climate change.
Adrienne, thank you so much for that question. This is a top priority for me. I have been a member of the Union of Concerned Scientists for many years and serve on their National Advisory Board. And this was a major motivation for me in getting into this race. As you said, we live on an island, and in addition to sea level rise and extreme weather, coastal erosion is also a huge threat to us here and our way of life. To fight against climate change, we need to set ambitious targets. We should aim to be carbon neutral by 2035 in our energy production and overall as soon after that as we can manage. And to get there, we need to deploy existing technologies in renewable energy, in clean vehicles, and in clean buildings. And that means building our clean energy infrastructure. We also need to invest in research to move us towards the technologies of the future, things that are scalable and that we can export to other countries like India or Bangladesh so that they can improve their quality of living without blowing the whole world's carbon budget. So when I get to Congress, I intend to be a leader on this issue. I want my office to be a resource for every member of Congress, Republican and Democratic, so that they can get access to the best information available, get all of their questions answered, and then I will hold their feet to the fire to make sure that we take meaningful action on climate change.
Thank you, Dr. GOROFF.
Thank you so much for being here. Very excited to meet you. So New York has some ambitious goals when it comes to renewable energy. One of them is to power 6 million homes with 9,000 megawatts of offshore wind by 2035, as you were mentioning before. The federal government plays a key role in getting that passed. We were supposed to have a map depicting wind sites, and that has not been released yet. So what would you do in Congress to get that through?
Thank you for that question, Melissa. As I said, this is all really important, and I think that we need to start taking action as soon as possible. We have an opportunity in the coming year because it's clear because of the pandemic and the economic devastation that it has caused that we're going to need to have real federal stimulus funding. And I want to make sure when I get to Congress that that stimulus includes money for infrastructure and especially for clean energy infrastructure to help us build those offshore wind locations. And I will certainly be there as a voice for how important this is to get the maps out and get moving so that we can get those wind farms going as quickly as possible.
Well, the solar investment tax credit has been a real success story in the federal government. It was enacted in 2006, and since then, we're happy to say, solar power has increased by 10,000%, creating thousands of good-paying jobs, as well as investing literally billions into our local economy and keeping our energy dollars here. Unfortunately, that tax credit expires next year in 2021. Will you support the reenactment of that tax credit? And also, what would you do if serving in Congress to help continue to promote solar on Long Island and throughout the rest of our nation?
Thank you for that question, Adrienne. As I said, it's so important that we get renewable energy sources expanded across the country, including here on Long Island. And tax credits are certainly one mechanism that has been very successful and can continue to be successful. And so I think it's something we need to really seriously consider. How are we going to do that, and should we extend it? It's something I am at this point in favor of, but I need to get more complete information on that. We are going to have to do everything we can to get renewable energy deployed. Thankfully, solar is much more economical now than it was before, and we want to make sure that that continues to be true, because the cost to us and our communities of sticking with fossil fuels is too high. We cannot afford that. And so I will certainly be pushing to make sure we do whatever we need to get solar put in place. One thing which I know is an issue here locally in some parts of the district, which is not really a congressional issue, but it shows where a member of Congress can be helpful on the local level, is that there are some local ordinances that make it more difficult to have solar in some locations. And I think this is where the congressional leadership, as well as local, our town governments and our county government, should all be working together. And I see one of my roles as a representative as bringing people together to have those discussions so that we can make it easier for people to use solar energy here on Long Island.
Dr. GOROFF, as you know, New York has the most ambitious goal in the country to reduce carbon emissions. But to ensure that that happens on a national level, we need real leadership in our federal government. Acts like hydrofracking, expanding offshore drilling in the Arctic, and reversing regulations just put us back. What do you plan on doing to fight against fossil fuels?
Thank you for that question, Melissa. And I am so proud of New York for the legislation that was passed last year with leadership from my own state assemblyman, Steve Engelbright, who is himself a scientist. I think it shows the benefit of having scientists taking leadership on these issues. And that is exactly the role that I intend to play at the national level. If I'm elected, I'll be the first female PhD scientist ever to serve in Congress, and one of only 2 PhD scientists in the House. And so I think my leadership will be something I really take very seriously in helping make sure that every member of Congress understands the urgency of this threat and how important it is that we do take action, that we stop investment in fossil fuel infrastructure and broaden our investments in green energy, clean buildings, clean vehicles. That is absolutely a commitment I am very happy to make to you today.
Okay, and the last question, but not the least, a topic that's near and dear, I think, to everyone on Long Island's hearts, and that's the issue of clean water. As climate change continues to progress, greater threats will hit Long Island, such as drought, but also saltwater intrusion into our aquifer system. One of the greatest challenges is to protect our water and protect public health and safety. Long Island has many problems associated with our quality of water. We need to change out lead pipes. We need to fight against toxic chemicals in the groundwater and also remediate plumes that are already there. What would you do as a congressional representative to help attain and fight for clean water for Long Island and, of course, the nation?
Adrienne, thank you so much for that question. This is a concern I hear about all the time from people in the district from across the political spectrum. People want to make sure that our water is safe. And of course, we now know that there are trace contaminants that are a real concern. The perfluoroalkyl compounds and 1,4-dioxane. These are things that we need to be very careful about monitoring so we know exactly where those plumes are and where exposure is a risk for people in their water supply. And we need the EPA not only to be monitoring, but also to be then helping with remediation, and where appropriate, the Defense Department should be helping with remediation also, because of course we have many defense contractors who have had manufacturing on Long Island, and that has been a big part of the contamination. This is something that is so important to Long Island families. With our sole source aquifer, people need to know that their water is safe.
Thank you. And now, please feel free to take 2 minutes and do a summary statement that you would like the people of the 1st Congressional District to hear.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who has been listening to this discussion. I am so excited at the prospect of being your representative here in New York's 1st District. I got into this race because I was frustrated and infuriated at the way that our representative, Lee Zeldin, and our president have been ignoring the facts and ignoring the evidence on issue after issue, but especially on the issues of climate change and the environment. We need to re-enter the Paris Accord. We need to make sure that we are working actively and ambitiously to reduce our carbon output as quickly as possible down to zero. That's the only way we can sustain our way of life here on Long Island. And I'm excited to work on that for you, for the people of this district. And I will be thrilled to have your support in that effort. Thanks so much.